Production support for the weekly special is provided by IU School of Public Health Bloomington, addressing public health needs by preventing disease, promoting health, and improving quality of life across the state and around the world through research, teaching, and community engagement. IU Credit Union, now offering mobile access to IU Credit Union accounts, helping account holders check balances, transfer funds, and pay bills through their mobile devices. Available through the IU Credit Union apps for iPhone and Droid. The Al Cobain Recognition Endowment Fund, established by friends and family of Al Cobain to support jazz initiatives on WTIU and WFIU. And WTIU members, thank you. Tonight, discover extraordinary Hoosiers that have felt a call to action, not just in their communities, but throughout the world. Climb the highest peaks with a Columbus chaplain, raising awareness one step at a time. Follow a Bloomington specialist as he delivers life-changing technology to the third world. Meet an unexpected Indiana hero profiled in the upcoming documentary, A Voice Among the Silent. And journey with the Patriot Guard as they make sure Indiana soldiers are never forgotten. Hoosier heroes are right here in your own backyard, so stay tuned to learn more, only on the weekly special. Hello, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Erica Sagone. Hoosier heroes can come in all forms, but for most, they're motivated by one thing, passion. And for our first subject, that passion has propelled him to the world's highest peaks. Retired pastoral care chaplain Walter Glover understands the importance of actively maintaining his health. Spurred by his love of wellness, he turned his attention toward combating youth obesity. He never imagined his efforts to change his community would bring him across the world.
My beloved Aunt Angie, who helped raise me and was also my godmother, as a child, she was obese. And she was just very vigilant that that would never happen again. And she never wanted that to be an issue. That was imprinted on me at a very young age, this idea of wellness. For a couple of years, I've been fascinated by the elite men and women that are climbing the mountain. I mean, that started all this. Fast forward 12 months later, it's '06. It's the climbing season at Everest. Base camp was my adventure. I had the dream of the mountain, but I hadn't made the connection to fundraising at that point. Again, I think that was one of those grace moments, gifts, when I knew that I would be going to Kilimanjaro, and I knew that there were 7 summits, and I'm kind of thinking, is this something I can do? And it was a chance to raise money for a cause. Like mountains, it just grew and grew.
To date, Glover has raised over $100,000, summiting 5 of the 7 infamous peaks. Glover covers the entire cost of his trips, asking his supporters to pledge a dollar amount for every foot he climbs. All of the money raised goes to bringing Life for Kids, a holistic youth obesity program, to St. Vincent hospitals in the area.
Kids learn how to eat correctly. Kids learn the importance and how to exercise correctly. There are behavioral therapists that help them understand how to implement these changes in their life. They have an Aunt Angie, someone that cares about them, and not just give them information, but give them formation techniques to make it happen.
Last year, however, Glover's efforts took a dramatic change of course. While training for Mount McKinley, he suffered a brutal fall. Though the fall resulted in only a few broken ribs, doctors made an unexpected discovery: 4 aneurysms, resulting in open heart surgery. Glover's spirit remained undeterred.
Dr. Hymanson, my cardiovascular surgeon, said, "Do you have any questions?" I said, "I only got one." He said, "What's that?" I said, "When can I return to the mountains?" And we agreed on a date. And I said, here's your assignment. When I get out of here, I want to be even stronger than I was when I came in here.
Less than a year later, he returned to the slopes, summiting Mount Rainier this summer.
It's important not to rest on your laurels. If 15 years ago, somebody would have knocked on my door and said, here's what your life is going to look like. You're going to get a master's in theology, you're going to provide pastoral care, and oh, by the way, you're going to try and climb the 7 summits. I would have said to that person, you know, I'm sure you're right, but you're knocking on the wrong door. You need to go down the hallway. It isn't so much about the destination, it's about the journey. When you're on the summit, we don't learn from the summit. We learn when we climb to the summit.
You can follow all of Walter's latest adventures at 2track4kids.org. While Walter has carried his Indiana message overseas, our next subject has brought his work back to our own backyard. Jim DeWees always knew that he wanted to help people, especially after being called to serve as a Mormon missionary to the Dominican Republic. But before he could depart, doctors discovered a bone tumor, and Jim faced a life-changing decision.
So, I was 19 years old thinking that I was going to end up losing my foot, from this bone tumor. And they took the bone tumor off. It was not cancer, so therefore everything was fine. I was able to go ahead and go to the Dominican Republic as a missionary. And the whole time I was there, I just noticed there were amputees everywhere. Every street corner there was an amputee. Every store I'd go in, there'd be somebody missing an arm or a leg. And so that really opened my eyes because I just had a close call with that. So I was more aware of it.
Returning home, Jim completed his education and began a career in medical research until an unlikely accident changed his course forever. During a ski trip, Jim suffered from devastating frostbite, and doctors were forced to amputate his left leg below the knee.
You can either decide to triumph over it and make your life better because of this, or you could go down the path of feeling sorry for yourself or feeling that self-pity. So I decided that the best way was to make this a positive experience, and that's what I did.
Jim started mentoring other amputees in the area, helping them transition in their own journey. But he struggled to find a prosthetic leg that would allow him the lifestyle he once enjoyed.
I was very much in shape, a very avid outdoor recreation person. I needed to be back doing that. So the only way I could see to do that was to make my own legs and do it the way I could feel that it needed to be done. I did quit my job, moved to Los Angeles, went to the certificate program for prosthetics, got my degree, and then spent a couple years working for different places, finished my residency up, and then ended up opening my own clinic here in Bloomington, Indiana. And looking back, it was the best thing I ever could have done. It's allowed me to have that ability to help hundreds of people here to get legs that are comfortable, legs that fit, legs that work, so that these people can attain their potential that they have.
But as Jim grew his practice, he was haunted by those first amputees he had encountered in the Dominican Republic, where something as minimal as a broken bone can lead to amputation, and where limb difference often leads to unemployment and homelessness.
I ended up going down to the Dominican Republic in January of 2004 to just see if it's still the same, if there's still that many amputees in the country, and if there's any place that's helping them with prosthetics. I found a private office, Innovación Ortopédica, but they were focusing mostly on braces because they were easier to make, cheaper to make with plastic. But to make prosthetics, it's very expensive because they'd have to order the feet and everything from Germany, somewhere in Europe, or from the United States. I took 2 suitcases full of used components of feet and knees and parts and talked with them about what I thought I would like to do somehow to be able to make prosthetics there to help the people. And they were very skeptical of if I was ever coming back. I brought the cast here to my office and at the same time seeing patients here, but spending the nights here making the ones for the Dominicans. And then I took them back, got the patients back in, got them fit, and they brought 20 more people in, and I cast 20 more people. And so now, after 10 years of working together with Innovación Ortopédica, we've been able to make over 500 limbs for people, all for free, to help these amputees regain their life.
Thanks to specialized training from Jim, clinic technicians are now able to do castings all on their own, using financial donations to cover the costs of materials and fabrications. Jim makes multiple trips a year, delivering the much-needed componentry he's collected from other prosthetists and manufacturers across the U.S.
My goal and the mission is to continue to help the people in the Dominican Republic have access to quality prosthetics. It doesn't really help anybody if it's just Americans that go down and fit these patients and then leave. It's better to go down and work with these guys that are very, very talented prosthetists and help them and give them the resources where they can provide the services in their own country. And I tell people here that try to understand this concept, you know, when someone in the Dominican Republic loses a leg, the thought of them ever being able to afford or get a prosthetic leg to walk again is about like me thinking that maybe next week I'll jump on a spaceship and get up on the moon. You know, when they get that, it's like giving them something more valuable than anything. So to see a kid walking again, running again, or to see the parents, their reactions, you know, there's the emotions, the feelings that go with it are very hard to explain. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me coming to do what I do. To do this for people is, it's a real blessing in my life.
To learn more about Jim's work, visit his website, prostheticsindiana.com. Well, this month, WTIU will premiere a new documentary about an unknown Hoosier hero, former IU student and professor James McDonald. Here's a sneak peek.
Almost half of the Jewish refugees from Germany and other European countries in the first days of the Nazi terror found in Palestine refuge and hope.
The humanitarian work of James McDonald, unearthed from recently discovered diaries that filled more than 10,000 pages, shed new light on what America and the world knew about the Holocaust.
Not only do we have a hero of the Holocaust, but nobody knew about him. He had been lost to history.
McDonald was able to get a private meeting with Hitler.
Hitler tells McDonald that he will show them how to get rid of the Jews.
That's what he said to Roosevelt and Jewish leaders. So long as Hitler was in power, there was no life for the Jews.
The fact that McDonald was a Catholic, I don't think made him, the Vatican any more receptive to his viewpoint.
Here was what my father had forecast all this time, and here it was. The war had started.
He was one of Roosevelt's loyal backers who was speaking truth to power.
McDonald's ambassadorship was absolutely crucial because the relationship between the United States and Israel was not an automatic relationship. It had to be built.
McDonald actually helped to save many thousands of lives.
And we're fortunate to be joined by filmmaker Shuli Eshel. She's the producer of A Voice Among the Silent. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Now, this must have been a tremendous story to tell. How did you get interested in it?
Well, I was invited to a lecture about James McDonald and in Chicago at Temple Sholom, and I went because I was intrigued. When reading the postcard, I realized that James McDonald saved many Jews before and during the Holocaust, and ultimately became the first U.S. ambassador to Israel. So I went and I spoke to the archivist from the U.S. Holocaust Museum and asked him if anybody had told the story besides the volumes that were published by Indiana University Press about his diaries that were, by the way, discovered in 2003. Up until then, he was like a footnote to history. And then when I heard about the story of how his diaries were discovered, I thought, I must make this film.
Did it surprise you that the story had sort of remained untold?
it surprised me very much, and that's exactly why I decided, especially as an Israeli filmmaker based in Chicago, to tell the story.
What do you think people are going to find interesting about this documentary and all the work that you've put into it?
I think the interesting thing is that James G. McDonald was born in Ohio, raised in Albany, Indiana, and graduated from Indiana University, and became the head of the Foreign Policy Association in New York in 1918. And from that moment onwards, he met with Hitler in 1933, and in a face-to-face meeting with Hitler, and Hitler told him his plans for the Jews, and he said, I'm going to show the world, I know the world wants to get rid of the Jews, they don't know how to get rid of the Jews, I will show them. And I think from that moment onwards, the whole life of James McDonald changed, and he saw it as a calling to alert the leaders of the free world. He met with Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, several times. He met with Pope Pius XII. He met with leaders from the free world and warned them about the looming tragedy that he heard in person from Adolf Hitler.
Shuli, what was it like to research James's life?
Well, first of all, I had to read the 2 volumes, Advocate for the Doomed and Refugees and Rescue, and his autobiographical, My Mission in Israel. So I read that, and what was the most astounding factor in the research that I found is that as early as 1933, McDonald was the person who alerted and warned world leaders, especially President Roosevelt, since he was an American, and he became the League of Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and did everything he could to try to save the Jews of Europe. And I could not believe that America and the Roosevelt administration didn't do anything to try to save the Jews of Europe. And it just baffled me, and that really was one of the driving force of telling the truth about what happened.
Why do you think people weren't really hearing him?
I think people were indifferent, people were anti-Semitic. There were lots of other problems, the depression and so forth in the United States. And obviously Hitler signed a concordat with the Germans and with Italy, with the Pope. And so I think the whole world was not ganging up, it seems, against the Jews. And it came as a surprise that a man like James McDonald, a Catholic, from a little town in Indiana, was the one who really kept those diaries and met with all these leaders around the world trying to save the Jews of Europe. And he would have done it for any people. It just happens to be the Jews.
Yeah, Shuli, this is such a fascinating story. Thank you for telling it, and we can't wait to watch the documentary. Be sure to tune in on Thursday, April 16th at 10 p.m. right here on WTIU to watch this incredible documentary. And of course, for more information about the film, visit avoiceamongthesilent.com. While Mr. McDonald's story was lost for many years, our next subjects have dedicated themselves to making sure Hoosier heroes are never forgotten.
As a volunteer firefighter, John Petro was asked to ready the station's fire engines and line them up along the road, in tribute to a young soldier whose remains were being returned to his family. As the procession entered his town, he was taken by an unexpected sight.
The closer the funeral procession got, the louder this noise that we could hear, a large rumble, deep bellowing rumble. And all of a sudden, all you could see is leather-wearing, bandana-wearing motorcycle riders. At first, I thought it was some kind of a gang or something coming to town. But shortly after, there was the hearse carrying the soldiers' remains. The outpouring of patriotism was unbelievable. The people in the towns were all outside standing on the sidewalks and in the streets. You would have thought it was a 4th of July parade for all the American flags, and that's what captured my heart. I wanted to do this, and I wanted to show a little bit of something to my country.
Started in 2005, the Patriot Guard formed to shelter families of fallen soldiers from protesters. Today, their mission extends to welcome home celebrations, deployment ceremonies, and volunteer work, with over 250,000 members nationwide.
You won't get a tighter group of people. I mean, every time you see one, everybody's hugging, shaking each other's hands, and rain or shine, they're there. We stood out in the cold, we stood in the rain, and it's great to have somebody standing there with you. And there always is somebody there right beside you.
We're there to stand for those who stood for us. Some of them gave the ultimate sacrifice, some of them are willing to lay it all on the line and fortunate enough to come back home. And everybody's got their stories of what they had to experience overseas.
And while not required, many of the Guard members are veterans themselves who, after witnessing the treatment of returning Vietnam vets decades ago, have vowed to make sure this generation and their families experience something much different.
I didn't get treated like that. I wanted people to respect the soldiers that were coming home. When they landed, they were just turned loose. Nobody welcomed them home. That's what the respect is all about. Honoring the vets, it's honoring us.
And while welcoming returning soldiers is an important part of their mission, the Patriot Guard remains focused on the families of those soldiers who do not come home.
We're there for the family, even after the limelight goes away. After the services are done and after the newspapers are done, the Patriot Guard Riders are going to make sure that we keep connected to those families to let them know that there are people that are out here in the community that's never going to forget their hero.
And for Anita Walker, there's been no bigger hero than her son, Robbie. At 19 years old, he joined the Marines, serving 8 years as a sergeant in the infantry mortar mission. After returning to civilian life, he re-enlisted, this time in the Army.
My son loved everybody, and he was a very happy jokester kid, and even when he was growing, he never had a mean attitude. He always smiled, and he believed in what he was doing.
On July 8, 2004, Sergeant Colville was killed when a mortar round hit his Baghdad headquarters. After John learned of Anita's loss, he received permission to honor her with a Patriot Guard plaque on behalf of her son's service.
It was emotional, but I was honored about my son giving the ultimate sacrifice, and he'll never be forgotten.
That gesture that we will never forget or have never forgotten has touched her, because now she and I have become very close friends. She knows that if she ever needs anything, all she has to do is call me.
And it's like, you know, he's an added son, is how I feel. He calls and checks on me. He comes out here with these big truck and plows my drive in the winter. You know, he's a wonderful person.
And that call came. This year marks the 10th anniversary of Sergeant Colville's death. And his oldest son, only 4 years old when his father passed, is all grown and returning to his father's hometown. And Anita couldn't ask for a better homecoming crew than the Patriot Guard.
When Sergeant Colville was killed in action, he didn't get anything to remember his father by. And she wanted to know if there was anything that I could do for her to welcome him home, to let him know that people will never forget his father and the sacrifice that he had made. And I said, absolutely.
John put out the call, and the Patriot Guard riders answered. Dozens showed up to surprise Travis with his own Patriot Guard escort to the family's farm.
I started crying. I thought, okay, John Petro said there was only going to be just a few. And my grandson said, look at them motorcycles, Nana. And then my friend that was driving the car, and he just kept driving, and Travis says, no, you can't go up there. He said, them look like Patriot Guard riders. And he didn't realize that it was for him. And I just started crying. I thought, oh, heavens. Because my heart just goes 100 miles an hour. Because I just, honoring my son. I just want him remembered. He was a good kid.
On behalf of a grateful America and the Indiana Patriot Guard, Travis, please accept our sincere condolences on your tragic loss of your father. May your pain be tempered by the knowledge that Sergeant Robert Colville, Jr., United States Army, is a true American hero and will always be in our hearts. We will never forget. Your father was a hero, son. never forget that, because we will never.
To find out how you can participate, visit inpatriotguard.org. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to thank the unsung heroes in our own community. Good night. Production support for the weekly special is provided by IU School of Public Health Bloomington, addressing public health needs by preventing disease, promoting health, and improving quality of life across the state and around the world through research, teaching, and community engagement. IU Credit Union, now offering mobile access to IU Credit Union accounts, helping account holders check balances, transfer funds, and pay bills through their mobile devices. Available through the IU Credit Union apps for iPhone and Droid. The Al Cobain Recognition Endowment Fund, established by friends and family of Al Cobain to support jazz initiatives on WTIU and WFIU. And WTIU members, thank you.